Welcome to the Prep Rally Podcast, special playoff edition. I'm Graham Thomas here in the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette studios in beautiful Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I'm joined by a couple of sports writing legends in the River Valley, our own Leland Barclay from the River Valley Democrat-Gazette, and Walter Woody, noted Arkansas football historian. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Yeah,
How you doing, Walter?
I'm doing fine. No longer in quarantine, so life is good.
All right, and out of school for the day too. So,
Out of school for the rest of the day. We have a short week this week, so playoffs. It's time for playoffs.
all right, playoffs. I'm all about playoffs. Let's talk some playoffs, guys. We're gonna go through each of the football playoff brackets, and we'll start with the eight-man football bracket. And Leland, you are the expert, having covered the eight-man championship game at War Memorial Stadium the last several years. Tell us about the eight-man bracket.
Well, the eight man, of course, it's 3 years old now, and I think we look at the top two seeds in eight man. The South one is Strong Huddig, the North is Midland. I think Strong would have had an excellent opportunity to have won the eight man state championship game last year if they hadn't had to have forfeited once they got into the playoffs. I think this is, even though Midland, the number one team from the North, is good, I think this is Strong's year for sure.
Hey, Walter, how about you?
I agree. In most of the years, you could argue the South has usually been the stronger division of the two. So, I mean, it wouldn't even be a surprise to see maybe even a strong Brinkley final, depending on how things play out. But I think Strong's the best team in eight man.
I'm with you on Strong. I think I've had them number one all year. Our guy Rick Fires, he had his state championship predictions in the paper, but he did not pick an eight man, so I can't tell you what he went with. But I'm also going with Strong. So uh, the Thursday, December 5th, is when the eight man championship will be at 7 p.m. at War Memorial Stadium. Eight man's different, y'all. It's like a free for all out there. Everybody's eligible to catch a pass. It's wild.
It's almost like playing a 7-on-7, except there are some linemen on there.
Well, and there is more running than what
Yeah,
most people think
think.
in eight
Yeah.
man.
Yep. All right, let's go to the Class 2A bracket, guys. The Class 2A bracket will be, or the Class 2A championship game will be at noon Friday, December 6th at War Memorial Stadium. Uh, Leland, what you think about the 2A there?
I think, I know Murfreesboro, won their conference. Conway Christian is good. Carlisle is good too, and I think they've mostly been picked number one most of the year in 2A. But I just think that the 2A2 conference was so good. I mean, gosh, you look at the fourth seed out of the two, and it's Mark
Mark Tree.
Tree, which is a very good team.
Yeah.
I just think the entire strength of 2A, except for Carlisle, which is very good, I just think the 2A2 is the by far the best conference, and I think it's going to be East Poinsett County that comes out and plays Carlisle for the championship and wins it all.
Walter, who
I
you got?
For the most part, I can't disagree with you, but I think Murfreesboro may survive first round because Mark Tree to Murfreesboro, that's a long bus haul for them, and I think that the it doesn't always show it at times on rare occasions, but those long trips and the smaller classifications make a huge difference in a lot of games. But I think Carlisle may be the best of the bunch, and I think they're going to beat East Poinsett County in the final.
Two of the best players in this classification, Mark Tree has them, and
Mm-hmm.
especially Kenyon Carter.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good one. The 2A2 may go 4-1 in that, or 2-0, or 4-0 in the first round, and even upset Murfreesboro.
That Mark Tree Murfreesboro is no easy one in the first round for sure. Um, Rick Fires is going with Carlisle here, and you know, I guess when I've looked at this bracket, the one team I keep looking at that was picked preseason number one in Class 2A by the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Junction City is sitting there at number as the second seed out of the three. Uh, Man, they could make a run. So I tell you what, I'm going to go East Poinsett County and Junction City in the finals with EPC winning it all. Oh,
The interesting thing about Carlisle is, Carlisle, we remember Carlisle, back in the 90s and the early 2000s would reach the finals, it seemed like every 4 or 5 years, and then find a way to fall short, not just losing, but find a way to fall short and losing. So it might be neat to see Carlisle finally get that state title they've been pushing for.
all right. Let's move on to the Class 3A bracket, and man, it's a bigger bracket. A lot, several more schools in Class 3A. So the championship game will be noon Saturday at War Memorial, or noon Saturday, December 14th at War Memorial Stadium, about a month away. I mean, you're talking a month of Class 3A playoffs. It's great. Walter, why don't we start off with you on the Class 3A? What do you see there?
Well, I mean, one of the teams, and I actually watched it while I was doing the Northside Springdale game from home Friday night. I was watching Fordyce McGee, and I'm going to tell you something. Fordyce went to McGee and laid a whipping on them, and I would not be surprised if you saw Fordyce, uh, them hosting Boonville on Thanksgiving weekend, and maybe in the semifinals against a team like Osceola in the semifinals. But I'm thinking Fordyce and Fordyce. I think it's going to be the team to beat in 3A this year.
Well, and the great thing about 3A, I think we can all agree that it's wide open.
Hmm.
In the Arkansas Sports Media poll that was just released earlier this week, there are six different teams that receive first
First place
place
votes.
votes. So, I mean, that just tells you on a statewide basis how wide open 3A is. And there's going to be some fantastic matchups throughout the 3A playoffs, especially you look at the semifinal games. And as much as we love and know how tough the 3A1 is, Boonville, like you said, Boonville could be going to
Right.
Fordyce.
Now that's a Thanksgiving quarter. The quarterfinal games are
Yes.
going to be just as good as some of the
Well, and
semifinals.
then Charleston may have to go to Bismarck on
Bismarck.
Thanksgiving Friday.
Hmm.
And then Mansfield, the conference winner, they may get to go to Glen Rose on Thanksgiving Friday. So just some fantastic matchups throughout the 3A playoffs.
And in the other quarterfinals, probably going to be Salem and Rivercrest, or Salem and Rising, depending on how that game plays out. But there's 3A and 4A in many ways are going to be the same thing. You have just as good of quarterfinal matchups as you would in the championship game.
Well, and you mentioned Rivercrest. Cavante Washington, he may be the best quarterback in this classification.
Yeah,
And so when you have that, when a team has that, it wouldn't be surprising to see Rivercrest in the semifinals or even back at War Memorial Stadium after being in 4A.
hmm,
Now they're dropping down to
done
3A. So it's again, and then and like you said earlier, you've got Osceola. Don't forget Salem, that's had a great year, and we haven't even mentioned Prescott yet.
Well,
No,
it's
that's the
funny you
two
mentioned.
seed that ended up being the two seed, and they were until they got beat a couple of weeks ago. They were pretty much the unanimous number one for most of the season.
It's funny you mentioned Prescott because that's exactly who Ricky Fires is picking to win Class 3A. Leland, who was your pick in Class 3A?
Well, I've got to go. Um, Prescott is my pick as well. But I think some of the luster, they lost a lot from last year. They played Boonville in the state championship game, and
And had chances to win.
well, and they still think that Dax Goff was short on that fourth down run, but he wasn't, and Boonville won the game. So I mean, I think it's got to be Prescott, but they're going to host Rivercrest
In the second round.
in the
So,
on that Thanksgiving
Thanksgiving
Friday.
quarterfinal, yeah.
So it's well, I tell you, whoever survives and gets to War Memorial Stadium is definitely going to earn it.
Yeah.
And I've struggled over this one, but I'm going a rematch last year, Boonville versus Prescott, and boys, I'm going to go with the Boonville Bearcats to repeat as champions. I think they're gonna. This is the playoff time. It's Boonville time, so I'm gonna go Boonville.
And you were talking about quarterbacks. One of the things I liked watching, I was impressed with at Fordyce. They run basic. It was wing T power and stuff like that, and they have speed to go with it. When you have when you run the Boonville type of double wing or wing T sets, and it's usually for power for 4 or 5 yards. But when you can add a speed element to it, it takes it on a whole different level.
Well, and the thing about, we love to do the River Valley, Democrat-Gazette and the top 5 performances of the last week. Rarely do we mention a Boonville player because they spread the wealth out
Spread the
so
wealth.
much on offense that they don't have that big guy that gets a lot. Now, Hunter Warren
Well, the
had a big
fullback
game.
still has to be.
Yes,
It's still going
and
to
he
be
had a big game
right.
last week. But out of all these teams, again, another team we haven't mentioned is Mansfield Much, the 3A1 winner. And then also Bismarck, who was the number 1 team the last 2 weeks
Hmm.
in the statewide poll. So if they get Ben Keithley, their quarterback, healthy back, again, you could look through here and see 10 teams with possibilities of winning this thing.
Man, it's fun, isn't it? Guys, let's move on to Class 4A. And man, you talk about another just a very difficult bracket to get through, just to get to the finals, which are Saturday, 6:30 p.m., December 14th. Um, I guess the question here is this year Elkins can break through and get there? So I'll start you guys off with that one.
Well, I think so, but the problem is they have much more of a minefield to get through. Last year, they pretty much had a pretty easy road to the semifinals and a home semifinal game. They just got up against the slightly better, I think, a slow start and a slightly better Harding Academy team ended their run. This year, they're going to have to, their quarterfinal matchup is likely going to be Malvern, which finished second to Arkadelphia in the 4A7. And if they get through that, they've got to play undefeated and Little Rock Mills that have been ranked number 1 pretty much through the season. They got to play that at Mills, not at War Memorial, but more likely at Mills.
Well, and if Mills can get by Warren
Warren, that's
in that
true.
in that
That's true.
quarterfinal game.
That's
So
true.
man, the semifinals.
That
To answer your question, I disagree with you that I don't think Elkins can.
well, I didn't say they would. I just said that
I don't
it's
think they will
no.
navigate through it because I think it's an Elkins at Mills semifinal game on Friday, December the 6th. And how about that quarterback, Elijah Moody? Now, he is a freshman, but he doesn't look like a freshman. And he may be the best quarterback in the 4A bracket.
Now, is his dad the former coach,
Yes,
Maurice
that's Maurice
Moody?
Moody's son.
Moody? Okay.
Yep.
Who comes
even
out on that
though,
other
yes.
side? That's the big question now. Is it Arkadelphia? Is it Southside Batesville?
I think it's Arkadelphia. Dardanelle will, Dardanelle Arkadelphia will be at Dardanelle, but Arkadelphia win that, and then Arkadelphia will host Southside, and I think Arkadelphia is going to get through there.
Well, probably.
That's the easier.
Probably because I mentioned Elijah Moody being the best quarterback in this conference or in this classification.
Mhm.
Well, Creed Vega, Dardanelle's quarterback, is sitting over there with his hand raised, saying, "Don't forget about me." So if
Hold my root beer.
exactly,
Hold my
so
beer.
if Arkadelphia, if they can knock off Arkadelphia, that would probably be the biggest win in school history.
Yeah.
For the Sand Lizards.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah,
I don't think they can do it.
I think Arkadelphia has if you compare, we were talking about teams, if anybody's got a draw, the top half of the draw, I think is so much easier than the bottom half. That's why I think the minefield is going to be much more difficult for Elkins to get to Little Rock.
All right,
And that's one
who
of
you
the
got?
great things about the playoffs is you look every year,
Yeah.
it's about matchups.
Matchups.
And
It's
the
about
different matchups and,
No question.
Who you got in the finals, Walter?
I'm going to go with Arkadelphia, and I'm going to go a little different here. One of these years, Bo's going to win another one, so I'm going to go Arkadelphia Warren.
well, I'm going to go Arkadelphia Mills. And Mills wins it all with a freshman quarterback.
And I'm going to pick Arkadelphia to win it all because Rex Nelson would tell me to do that.
I was going to go Arkadelphia and Warren as well. I think the Warren team that played Elkins early in the year. I think they're going to be a little bit more healthy this time around. They're going to get through it, and we've heard all about Warren all year and how good potentially they can be. All right,
but this is one of those things, real quick. This is one of those things for Elkins. If Elkins wants to prove they belong and what they've done the last couple of years with football, this is one of those that they can get to the finals and prove that they're the one of the elite programs down 4A.
And Walter, I'll also say this too. I really like your Malvern reference there too. I think they're a really good football team.
Malvern's a really good football team. They had a bad time against Arkadelphia, but the draw that it's sort of like, hey, we don't play Arkadelphia to the finals. Let's see what we can do.
And it could be a rematch.
A rematch.
Yeah,
very
that's
well.
why they play that game.
Any of those 6 or 8, it's a 6 or 8 team thing for the champ to get to the state finals. And if you told me any of those 6 teams are in the finals, I'd say, okay, good.
All right, well, let's move on to Class 5A. I think all of us are going to probably say the same 3 words here, but the big question is, who are they going to play? So Little Rock Parkview, defending state champions, just a very dominant program right now in Class 5A. Am I in agreement with you guys that it's Parkview?
Yes, I mean, Valley View's had a wonderful year and a great story, but it ends, and Parkview will go up to Jonesboro win. But let me say this, Camden, and I watched some of this the other night too. Camden Fairview put up a pretty good fight and had chances to win that game. And I watched Camden Fairview last year come up to Farmington and lay a whipping on the Cardinals. And Camden Fairview does things. They have the athletes, they have the style of play that can give a lot of teams fits. And they're sitting, they get a tough first round game with Harding Academy. But I'm telling you, if they win, they could have a rematch with Farmington week 2, and that could be a heck of a game. Or if Farmington plays Harding Academy is a tough road. So the Cardinals have a tough road if they even want to get to Pulaski Robinson.
Well, and I agree. Parkview is not going to steamroll through this thing like they had the last 2 years, especially like they did last year. I think there's some real competition for Parkview in 5A.
All right. Well, moving on.
And look at a couple of the matchups too. I think Robinson can match up with them. Harding Academy can match up with them. Owen Miller is a 4-year starter at quarterback for Harding Academy. He's the only quarterback this year thus far that's gone over 10,000 career touchdown passes. I think he's throwing 102 career touchdown passes, and that gives them a definite advantage to have a veteran quarterback like that.
And here's another thing about
they're playing Camden Fairview the first round.
The more interesting thing about Owen Miller is he could become the first quarterback to win a 3A, 4A, and a 5A state title.
Absolutely.
That would be just amazing to see that. But now let's say this. Parkview has an easy, no offense to Valley View and some of the other teams, Parkview on the top half of the draw, they're going to get to Little Rock. I don't see anybody in the top half. But Pulaski Robinson, Farmington, even Lakeside was competitive with them.
Yep.
And then you go Farmington, Harding Academy, Fairview. There are teams on the bottom half of the draw that could give Parkview trouble and can be competitive with Parkview. It's just that it's got to everything's got to bounce right on that night. But
don't forget, Morrilton's sitting there in that top half too.
That's true.
And Maddox Berry had a pretty good game a couple of weeks ago. I believe he threw 10 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
So
but you remember Parkview was once a basketball school, so they can figure out a way to.
Well, that's true too. But I just think that yes, I do think Parkview is the best team in 5A. But I think there's going to be some really good games to watch along the way.
All right.
The bottom half of the draw is going to be fun.
The Class 5A state championship game is at 7 p.m. Friday, December 6th, and should be a real fun one to be at. Class 6A, it's almost kind of the same question as Class 5A, just sub out Parkview for Greenwood. I think we all agree Greenwood has the team to get to the championship game again. So who's going to be there with them? And in my mind, it's Benton. Benton seems to be like a team that has really got it together this year. They played Bryant really tough in the Salt Bowl earlier this year. Guys, what do you think?
It's Greenwood Benton all the way. I mean, there's nobody that Greenwood should really have to worry about on the top end of their draw. And, maybe if Benton plays off Shiloh or someone could sneak up on them. But to be honest, it's a Greenwood Benton final.
It's a Greenwood Benton final. There's going to be some interesting I guess, storylines along the way. Like if
Yeah,
El Dorado knocks off Russellville, then you have the return of Chris Hill to Greenwood,
Greenwood. Yeah,
which is a good storyline. How about Sheridan and Kevin Kelly
yeah,
getting in as the sixth seed from the East?
yeah.
That's always interesting with the onside kicks and all of that. And then, of course, you got Shiloh Christian, the first year up in 6A. Possibly, Cole Creighton and them matching up with that road trip to Benton in the semifinals. But Marion's pretty good. And if Van Buren knocks them off, again, you've got a rematch there. So
Right.
there's some interesting things leading up to that.
But
But I think the overwhelming favorites are Greenwood and Benton.
I mean, he mentioned Sheridan and Mountain Home. That's the only thing. If I'm Mountain Home, is you better be practicing your own side kicks because uh, for about a quarter and a half, El Dorado wasn't doing it, and they were behind like 28-14 or 28-35 something, and then all of a sudden, once they figured that out, El Dorado steamrolled them. But Kevin Kelly has done a nice job, if nothing else, this year making Sheridan semi-relevant. Now, this is going to be a 4 or 5 year process before he makes Sheridan into a championship team.
Well,
But
they
it's
did give
getting
up 84 points to El
84 El
Dorado on
Dorado. Yeah.
Friday night.
Speaking of basketball, but like I said, Greenwood Benton. Uh, I'd like to see a new champion, but unless something crazy happens, you could kind of see Greenwood winning another championship.
All right, the Class 6A state championship game will be at noon Saturday, December 7th at War Memorial Stadium. And that leaves us with the Class 7A bracket guys, and that game will be played at 6:30 p.m. Saturday, December 7th, once again at War Memorial Stadium. And man, just on the outside looking in, you just don't know what the situation is in Conway right now with the quarterback. I hear he may not be back, and if that's the case, I think that really opens up the door for Bentonville to make a run to the state finals and probably play Bryant. I don't know that I see anyone taking down Bryant in the top half.
I don't see anyone take if Conway's quarterback's out. I don't see anyone taking out Bryant. Period. That's been the kind of disappointing thing since the 7A. We created the 7A conference with just the 16 teams. I don't want to use the word lack of competitiveness, but the chalk holds so much. We rarely get. It's been a while since we've had the huge upset, the Fayetteville beating the 25 game winning streak of Bentonville, or Southside beating Rogers in '06. I mean, we haven't had that. We've had these dominant teams. Fayetteville, North Little Rock had the 1 year, and Bryant's had the one, and then Fayetteville again. You'd like to see something else. I'd love to see Jody Grant and Bentonville not only get to the finals but win. But I just right now I don't see it.
Well, you know
Well,
what?
Friday night
I've
when
seen quite a bit
Bri-
of Bentonville this year, and I'm telling you, I think there's something has clicked over there, and they've really got it going. And they went to Bryant last year and won in the semifinals on Thanksgiving weekend. Boys, I'm going to say Bentonville's going to go win this whole thing.
I can't. Bryant's the obvious number one choice and the obvious winner to win this because they beat Conway. It was a battle of number one versus number two Friday night. Bryant won 49-14. There's been 21 number one versus number two regular season matchups in regular season since 1983 when the merger of the big school classification into the current playoff format. Other than Springdale's win over Fayetteville in 2005, which was 56-14. That was the biggest margin of victory ever for a number one over a number two. Now, part of that was Conway didn't have their starting quarterback, but I just think there's that much of a difference between Conway because Conway beat Bentonville earlier
Yeah.
in the
And,
season.
and Bentonville's a different team this time
And they
because I
are
saw
now.
them against Northside defensively.
Yep.
They're really good, but Bryant does so many things well. And from a man-on-man, player-on-player difference, there's a huge gap. And it goes back to what we have been in a run now of the Central dominating 7A, but really it's just been Bryant and Conway and North Little Rock being the dominant teams of 7A whereas back in the West it was just Bentonville and Fayetteville. I mean, there's the haves and the have-nots, and there's not a whole lot of equality once you fall off of that group.
I don't think you can count Rogers out.
I don't think so either. Especially, there's Rogers
Well, if
has the
they get there,
personnel
they would get a semifinal. I mean, they could play Bentonville in the semifinal, no question, especially if Conway's quarterback out. But do I think they could beat Rogers? I'm not sold on that. Yeah, or sorry, that Rogers could beat Bentonville. I'm not sold on that.
well, and
You
there's a
know,
reason why they haven't done
another
it.
upset potential could be PA beating Fayetteville in the second round. Fayetteville had that little whatever they had for about that Bentonville game and their quarterback situation. Once he got back healthy, they seemed to roll. But PA is really not a bad football team. Their only two losses, were to Bryant and Conway. I think if there's ever a second round upset going, besides the Conway Rogers situation, I think it could be PA beating Fayetteville.
So
And first round, I think Cabot's going to beat Springdale.
all right, so let's get your picks here. Class 7A, who's state champion? Who do they play?
I don't think there's any doubt coming out of that top half of the bracket, it's Bryant. Yes, PA versus Fayetteville is probably the most intriguing playoff game of the whole entire November.
Yeah.
That PA Fayetteville, but it's not going to matter who wins that game because they're on the same side of the bracket as Bryant. I still think that Conway is the second best team in the state, and I think Conway, with or without Grayson Wilson, comes out of that bottom part. Although, man, Rogers and Bentonville is sitting there licking their chops, and it wouldn't surprise me if Rogers can upset Conway. I think they can upset Bentonville too, but I'm still sticking with Bryant, Conway, an all-central final. Bryant wins it because of their ability to run the ball and pass the ball. They've got two great running backs that they could just hand it to 40 times a game combined. And Jordan Walker is the difference at quarterback for them. A senior who can throw it and he can run it. They're just a complete team. Bryant wins it all.
And as much as I would like, I think it's going to be Bryant and Bentonville. I think the injury to the quarterback is going to be too much, and I think Bentonville this time will beat them in Bentonville. But even though I'm not overly impressed at times this year with Bryant's defense, because I think they've been attacked here and there, I don't think Bentonville's offense has enough to keep up with the Bryant scoring machine. I think Bryant's going to win another state title.
All right, well there you have it, folks. These are our picks for all the championship games. I hope you've enjoyed our special playoff preview show. For Walter Woody and Leland Barclay in the River Valley, I'm Graham Thomas in Northwest Arkansas, signing off. We love you.